let me go ahead and throw out a couple quick reminders, folks. So, hey, um, please be sure to join our Slack if you haven't already, because again, even if it's for nothing other than the fact that every Friday we're giving away a really cool Lima Charlie, or it's actually a Defender Fridays themed shirt. It's just made in the art style of Lima Charlie. It's a really cool shirt. It's one of my favorites, and we're giving a free one away every Friday to a random Defender Fridays attendee. So if nothing more, join for that reason. But there's plenty of other really awesome reasons to join, because our Lima Charlie community is always throwing in interesting detection ideas, threat intel, or just general defensive related kind of topics. And so it's a really good community to be a part of.
Here we go.
Hey, sir. Thank you for joining us. I think this is your first time on Defender Friday. So let me give a quick spiel just to kind of level set here. The name of the game, Defender Fridays, is bringing together like-minded individuals in the information security space, right? It doesn't really mean you need to be on the defensive side of things, because at the end of the day, we're all working together towards the same goal. Adrian has been in this industry for a very long time. He's had some really interesting roles. He's also been a startup founder. Adrian, you had a stint with Think's Canary, I think, for a period of time. Yeah, I mean, he's been all over the place. And he also runs a podcast, Security Weekly, right, Adrian?
Enterprise Security Weekly. There's several security weeklies.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That's a whole catalog of series. So yeah, Enterprise Security Weekly, which if you've not checked out, yeah, I highly recommend that you do. Really awesome content. He brings on some really solid folks to talk about just what's happening in the enterprise security space. But Adrian, thank you so much for joining us, man. I'm excited to hear what you want to talk about today.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Thanks for inviting me. These things are a lot of fun. I like that you guys do these things, and it's a very different way of putting together this kind of content, right? Like doing a podcast is a very different thing. We don't get the interaction. Sometimes I do my podcast, and back when we used to be live, I used to think, is anybody actually watching this? And then I'll go to an event or something like that, and somebody will say, I listen to every podcast, and but I go long periods of time with no feedback at all. So I don't know. I'm just, yelling into the void. So this is great. This is a great format.
I just threw a quick chat and message, but just to throw it out there. So I appreciate the feedback on the format, Adrian, but I always feel the need to pay credit back to where we were inspired originally. The really awesome folks at Red Siege, they run their Wednesday offensive. They're the ones that really, I think, coined this concept in this format, and they were kind enough to kind of let us borrow and reuse that. But yeah, thank you for the feedback, man.
Nice. I didn't realize that. So today's topic on my podcast, and just in general, I've been following AI for quite a while, and one of the things that I did in the near past is, and I'll probably try it again at some point, is I tried building product testing for cybersecurity products, because I still feel that's something that's really needed out there. Most people just depend on friends, colleagues, peers, to give recommendations on good products and things like that. And I mean, there's a few things out there, but mostly it seems like they focus on performance testing and stuff like that. Doesn't really give me a feel for what the product's like. For what it's like to use a product. So, I actually tried doing that for a while at Cyber Risk Alliance, the same company that owns my podcast. It was the middle of the pandemic. They didn't have the resources to let me build out a team. So I did some product reviews there, and had to give up on it, had to leave. But yeah, one of the things we did is, so we would do the public testing. We'd just go out, find a bunch of tools and test. And I'll bring this back around to AI here, because that's kind of the focus here is a talk that I've submitted to B-Side San Francisco that got accepted, where I want to kind of give you a preview and get your feedback on it. But we had a couple companies approach us wanting independent tests of their products, and they kind of came to us with these like the outcome was predetermined, right? Like, we already wrote this white paper talking about how amazing our technology is. We just need you guys to independently, come to the same conclusions that we did. And obviously from the very beginning, I'm, like, okay, what if we don't, right? Like, what if we test your product and don't come to the same conclusions? And this happened twice, and both these are companies that you would recognize the name of. They've been in the industry for over 10 years. They're well known. I'm sure their products work fine for some people. They must for them to still be in business. But
Adrian,
both
these are security products. I just want to clarify, right? Are
yeah,
these security products? Okay. So
these are
got it.
security products that lean heavily on machine learning to do things like anomaly detection and detect threats in both network and other types of activity and traffic. And and one of them insisted that we do the testing in their special environment, and they even built a special tool to make their product look shine in the best light, right? And just utterly failed. Just just I guess they were leaning to their excuses were there's not enough noise, right? Like everything's an anomaly because there's no actual normal user traffic. There's no baseline traffic here, and our point was, look, this is you told us how to do it. You said we must do it in this environment. You set up the product for it. And this is one of my concerns about AI and machine learning, stuff like that in general, is there's this temptation to throw it at the sexiest problem in the room, right? And it's going to fail spectacularly. And my concern is that it puts a black mark on the technology and takes everything with it. So this happened to NAC back in the day. It happened to application control back in the day. We used to call it whitelisting. There are people saying that this is going to end malware, right? Like if we have a tightly controlled list of all executables that are allowed to execute, malware won't work anymore. So people saying we weren't going to need antivirus anymore, right? Because we're all going to have these perfect lists of every executable that can run. And of course, it didn't work out that way. And there were people that wouldn't use these tools for years because at the leadership level, at the executive level, they're like, yeah, we tried that, it's garbage, it didn't work.
At some point, out of the infinite universe of Hello Worlds and Mimikatz, you're never going to perfectly distinguish them. That we can't prove programs will end literally with a halting problem. How are you going to prove whether they're malicious or not reliably 100% of the time? There will always be misclassifications. Pretending otherwise is saying like, hey, guys, I've proven P equal NP, and I have solved the halting problem, and also AV is a trivial consequence of that. If people aren't making that claim, then you should take less seriously. Oh, yeah, we've solved because next gen, because AI, we've solved the false positive problem.
Yeah.
Angry.
Like it's that instinct that these industries have towards preying on the confusion, right? It's a lot of folks don't understand it, so it's easy to weaponize it because very few people can really discern like what has substance and what is smoke and mirrors, right? Like it's very difficult. Like that's why it took subject matter experts to dive into this to give an objective view of it, because not just anybody can. Right? Like that's in my eyes, like that seems to be what the biggest
I know
challenge
it's
is.
probably clear to a lot of folk, but just to be clear, when Eric says that the vendors are weaponizing, to be clear, they're weaponizing their customers' lack of knowledge against their customers.
Yeah.
They are treating them like a mark and not someone they can help and have mutual gain.
Well put. Yeah, and so I track the market a lot. We talk about the market a lot. So I tend to be, a little bit negative, on the vendor space, even though I have a lot of friends, that have built companies, that run companies. I don't mean ill will to the, vendor community in general, but yeah, there is a lot of that, a lot of these companies that know they just have to grow to a certain point, and you can fake it till you make it a long, long, long way, right? Like I've seen products that fundamentally, didn't achieve what they set out to do, what they claimed to do, grow to, 50 million ARR, get acquired, get that exit. And then the company that acquires it, down the line realizes they've got a nothing burger on their hands, and you just see it disappear into the ether, right? So that does happen. And that was one of the problems I wanted to solve by building product testing. But back to AI, I see this starting to happen again. And I mean, the big difference here, especially with these LLM chatbots and things like that we've got now, is that it doesn't have to come from a vendor. Like this is being used on so many different levels by so many different products. It's a lot more versatile, a lot more approachable. A single person can easily just grab some form of AI and do something useful with it, which is not something that was always possible in the past with some of these technologies. But the title of my talk, and it's intended to be a persuasive talk, is AI, best janitor or worst superhero? And what I mean there is, maybe we don't go after the sexiest problem in the room, the biggest problem, the stopping all threats thing that we're starting to see some of these people throw this technology at, or the perfect SOC analyst. Is it going to be a tool that will help folks in those roles? Absolutely, I think it will. The way it can just consume massive amounts of data, and spit out concise analysis is going to be really, really useful. But I think we need to aim at the more mundane, the more, the shitty jobs nobody likes to do, the repetitive stuff, the crappy stuff, the stuff where like we've seen some SOAR tools have a lot of success, right? Where Tynes has this whole community now, where people are building these things that are kind of tackling these problems, and I think that's a big opportunity here. So I wanted this to be more of a conversation, have people maybe come off mute and throw out some experiences. With this many people, I imagine somebody's played around with AI, particularly with LLMs, and is doing some interesting things with them. I know I've got a few examples that I can share, but that's kind of what I'm hoping for out of this. Like how do we get rid of the crappy work? How do we use it as the best janitor? Instead of trying to force it into the role of worst superhero.
I think a big part of it is feeding your own personal LLMs with your own data and being able to have that privatized. So where I work a day job, we fed all of our product documentation, our manuals, like everything into this sucker, and a bunch of case data from all the various teams. And we got it such that we can write part of our reports using it. We can do things like, come up with queries. We have a first-party proprietary query language for our security product. We say, hey, I want to be able to find blah, 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 blah. And it goes, it just spits it all out. But that's something that we definitely wouldn't want to do in a public model. And I think that a lot of folks are still trying to utilize AI, but using public models. And I think that's just introducing these additional capabilities that we don't want it to have.
Not to mention, it's now easier than ever. Something that I see often in some client conversations I've had is concerns around the fact that Copilot's now part of Windows, right? And so you've got chat right there on the Windows desktop. How do you train your users how to use that? Now, what I'm not saying, what I don't believe is the right answer is take these things away, because Adrian, to your point, right, this absolutely can assist. This helps with the garbage collection, right? This helps with, hey, there's this time consuming, tedious thing that I've got to do, and an LLM can help me get it done 10 times faster. Like, you should want that productivity boost for your folks, right? And for SOC analysts specifically, like, I can't tell you how many times I've used ChatGPT to craft a quick Yara signature or a Sigma rule or something, and it's not always perfect, but it gets me damn close, and it took no time at all to do. So it's a force multiplier, but right, there's still unanswered questions about what it means now that it's right there in front of everyone.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's replaced Google for me for a lot of use cases. Like sometimes I just need to know something simple. Like, I had a brain fart yesterday, and I couldn't remember how to invoke PowerShell from within the Windows command prompt. Like, I was thinking it was some abbreviation, not PowerShell just written out. And if you try and Google that, like, Google's like, surely you're not looking for something so simple. So instead, it tries to tell you how to invoke the Windows command prompt from within PowerShell, which is the exact opposite of what I was trying to do. And things like that, like the public models are just great for. So I think a lot of it is going to be training, is going to be, okay, what data can we put, what are the use cases? How do we use these different things? Because honestly, I jump between 3 or 4 different public models, between Claude, between Gemini, between ChatGPT, because they can all do different things. Like, I don't think Claude is connected with the internet at this point, but ChatGPT and Gemini, you can both ask to do things where it'll go out and browse web pages for you. And then, another excellent tool is what is a browser company, that tool that it just came out with?
Brave?
Blanking on the
Leo?
names again. I've got it right here in my phone.
I think Safari has one too. I don't know.
Arc. So Arc is the name of the browser they make for the Mac, but on iOS they call it Arc Search, is what they call it. But you can just tell it like the name of a project or something you want to do, and then you can hit Browse for me, and it'll go through a dozen different websites and give you just the most concise answer. Like, if you ever look for a recipe online or something like that, like a lot of these recipe sites, you have to scroll, for 5 minutes to get down to the actual recipe. Like
a life story, and
yeah. When you say browse for me, like it creates a web page for you with just what you're looking for, and then you can share that with somebody else, which is something you can do with ChatGPT now. Now that they have Teams, you can share your results, you can share your queries. All this stuff are things that you can share, and it all comes down to time savings, which we do a lot of stuff in security that's just eats a ton of time. I remember back in the enterprise side, teaching somebody to do macros, because I just heard it sounded like somebody was drumming at their desk, and they were just like hitting the same keystrokes over and over because they're trying to transform, a piece of data into CSV. So they're just, removing carriage returns and adding commas, and removing carriage returns and adding commas. I'm like, okay, here's how you make a macro. Here's how you write a macro.
I think there is a. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
No, you go ahead, Jeff.
I think there is a lot of low-hanging fruit for companies of so many roles. I mean, there's the whole book of bullshit jobs, and there are a lot of positions that let's take it the nice way, and the employee could be doing something far more useful with their time than I take the fields from this application here and I copy and paste them into this application here. There's a lot of glue code, like transforming the world. Prompt engineering is thinking clearly and articulating what you actually need. And it turns out that's like halfway to programming. So transforming the world into people who think programmatically is going to be absolutely a useful thing. How many bullshit jobs disappear versus how many are abstracted to a level that is more useful for that human, that remains to be seen.
Yeah, so replacing someone with a small shell script is now replaced by replacing someone with a simple GPT prompt, right?
Adrian, so I had a quick question for you to bring it back a little bit, because I want to see if we can extract out some insights that'd be useful to our audience as far as all the different vendors in this space that are throwing big claims about AI, right? Some might be using it very smartly, some might be faking it till they make it and still faking it, right? My question for you would be, obviously, I'm not asking you to name drop the vendors that you did the test on and found some pretty not so great things, but I would love to know, what are things that folks can look for? We might have folks on this call that are maybe in the procurement process for some of these different types of tools. What are ways that they can kind of spot the signs of, oh, they're doing it right, or no, this is smoke and mirrors? Are there any things that you can kind of latch onto to work that out?
Yeah, I think the problem with at least one of these companies is they're trying to use the machine learning model for everything, but it's like the stupid debate that's going on LinkedIn right now because of Palo Alto, going all in on platforms, like this idea that everything's going to roll to one platform or everything should be best of breed. Just like using AI ML, like the answer is always in the middle. Like there's no reason they should have been using machine learning or behavioral anomaly detection for just basic red flags, like somebody mentioned Mimikatz, something that's bad all the time. Every time I see this is going to be a bad thing. you can have a static rule for that. That can still be a 20-year-old snort rule and perform perfectly well. Like you don't need to throw machine learning at everything,
Yeah,
because
honestly, machine learning is often used to make those static rules, which is to some extent fine. But I was looking at the decoded Yara rules from Defender yesterday, and it's literally looking for things like, hey, is there invoke dash mimikatz in the binary? If so, call it bad. Is there steal creds from LSAS? If so, call it bad. It turns out the name mimikatz is not the important part. It's the feature. And that's much harder to programmatically define.
expensive enterprise regex. Yeah, love it.
So more or less looking for straight behavior rather than just, the 1,000 different programs can do the same thing, but we're looking for the behavior rather than the different programs.
Yeah, I don't think there's like a magic question you can ask somebody. I mean, you can learn a bit about machine learning, and you can learn to ask some questions about how they train their model and things like that. But I don't think that really gets you much of anywhere. Again, that's why I was trying to do product testing, because like this one company, everything they said sounded great, but when it came down to testing the tool and throwing very basic, very common attacker TTPs at it, it just completely failed to detect anything. So you never know until you actually, test it out. So I don't think there's any replacement for that.
I had an interesting conversation with an enterprise security team not long ago that were using an AI-powered kind of anomaly detection product. And what happened was, during the 3 months or however long the training period, there was a steady sort of bad thing happening during that training period. And since it was in training mode, it wasn't generating any alerts. It got trained into the model, and therefore it never created an alert, because it was trained into their data set, their model, and it ended up being something they found many, many months later. And they're like, "Why didn't we know about this?" Oh, because it went on during the training period. So that's the other problem, right? Is you're training against what may be unclean data to start with. So there's so many challenges, and I think. But of course, the vendor's not going to be upfront about the possibility of this happening, and they're not going to come in and do a compromise assessment to make sure that it's clean, right? It's like here you go, you bought it, good luck. Professional services, that's what you get. First 60 days.
And the way you test stuff is, it's always going to be a bit of a setup. Like the correct answer before you ask the question that you want the product to answer for you. So yeah, don't do any testing unless you already know the correct answers, so that you can spot when it misses stuff.
I think that's worth doubling on right now. If you don't have these skills to evaluate what you're asking ChatGPT or other large language models, then do not claim it's authoritative.
Yeah,
it's great for imaginative, creative ideas. I love it for phishing. Hey, this company uses this product, so here's an example phishing email we'd like to send. Can you customize it for this product to make it make sense? It's great for making fake websites that'll totally trick the Erics of the world into, yeah, that's a legit site. But that's different than depending on its output as this is authoritative and always correct. That's a dangerous way to live.
Yeah, and it's... I think there's a lot of that. I think a lot of that's going to go into the training of how we use these things, because, as Eric pointed out, we don't have much choice. AI is already shoved into Slack. I use it in Notion. So Notion actually does what somebody was describing earlier, where I've got all my research data in Notion, and it now has a tool where I can just ask it questions about like every meeting I have, all the research I've done. It's all in there. And it can more than just searching through it, I can ask it questions, and it gives me results based on my own data, from years and years. So, but I still use a combination of that, with Claude AI, with ChatGPT, with Gemini for different things. And I think it's going to take a lot of trial and error to figure out what works for all these different use cases that we have. Some of it is learning a new tool. Some of it is generating a config for something. Like it's every time somebody tells me, yeah, but surely it can't do this. And they mentioned something really specific, and I think it was a while ago, Eric, I saw you have it just spit out just a very specific config file for a specific security product. Like it'll do it. I think it was Anton Chuvakin I was talking to, and we were talking about generating job recs with it. And he was like, yeah, sure, it could spit out like a generic security analyst, security engineer job rec, but not like like a detection engineer or something like that. And I said, well, let's try it. And I did it, and it was flawless, right? Except for the weird bit at the bottom where it tries to say something about the company's perks. And it was just like it made up random perks because it knows that should be a section in a job rec. But tons of trial and error.
Just remember, it's trained on data that's already in existence, right? So be careful using it to write entry-level job recs for cybersecurity roles, because it's going to say things like requires 5 years experience for a beginner role.
You still have to check everything, right? Like it's if you're not qualified to judge the response, it sounds really confident. You might just and that's a lot of the danger with it, right? That's a lot of where we can get burned with this and end up in the we tried that, it was garbage category. Like asking it to come up with facts is a little bit better now that ChatGPT seems to know when it needs to go browse a website to go find that rather than just hallucinate stuff. But yeah, certainly when you're giving it the input data and asking for output, like I'll just share something I used it for the other day. I was writing a document for IONS that was, the idea was, is it worth going all in on Microsoft as a platform, or going for point products, best of breed instead? And it involved documenting every single one of Microsoft's security products, which there's over 50 now. And so one of the problems I ran into is I had to write like a short description in that document and like detail a few features for each of those 50 products. And I was like, shit, I'm going to have to go browse every single individual web page, read it, summarize it, and put these things together. And I turned to ChatGPT and I just gave it a list and I said, hey, give me a summary, and 3 bullet points highlighting three features for each of Microsoft security products. And it just spat it out and, read through the whole thing and just nailed it, got it perfect on the first try. And it's just a lot of trial and error. I think there's a lot of stuff that we do every day that could be fully automated. And it's just not occurred to us that, there are tools now that can do that. All this has happened so fast.
Well, Adrian, this is an awesome chat, man. I'm really digging it, but we are at the top of the hour, folks. So let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. Hey, really quick reminder, if you have not already, join our Slack. We're going to every week pull a random participant to receive a really awesome Defender Fridays shirt. And we announce that winner in Slack. So if you're not present, you can't win, right? So join the Slack. Also, we've got a really awesome guest lined up for next week. Matter of fact, you all know who he is. Let me just double check our calendar. Brian Concannon from Echo Trail is coming on next week. He's got some pretty cool stuff to share. I know he's got some really awesome things popping out over at Echo Trail. I'm hoping we're going to hear about some of that next week. But otherwise, folks, have a fantastic rest of your day. Great weekend, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everyone.